Now from the Biden campaign, Senior Advisor Symone Sanders joins us now. You just heard Jason Miller. Symone, thank you for joining us. Says Vice President Biden wants to stay in the basement and have everybody else stay there too.
Thank you for having me this morning, George. Look, what Jason Miller and the Trump campaign are asserting just isn't true, George. Vice President Biden was out campaigning this week, as you know. You folks saw him not campaigning, but reverencing and really taking a solemn moment marking the 9/11 this past Friday. And Vice President Biden will be out next week. He's going to Florida. We'll be in Minnesota. We'll have some things that we'll be announcing. So the reality is Vice President Biden is actively campaigning, as is Senator Harris. But the difference is, George, we're doing so safely. We are letting the science lead us. We are listening to the experts. You know, safety is of the utmost importance to our campaign, the safety of the voters, the safety of our campaign staff, and that is why Vice President Biden is modeling good behavior. He's wearing a mask. We are social distancing, as you'll see at our events and press conferences. That stands in stark opposition to what President Trump is doing, having huge rallies with large groups of people who are packed in together. It's not safe and it's not modeling good behavior.
Vice President Biden has said that the president's response to the coronavirus is a betrayal, that it's cost American lives. But what evidence do you have that Vice President Biden was calling for a significantly different response early on? Can you point to public statements in January and February where the vice president called for travel bans, social distancing, wearing masks?
Well, I can do you one better, George. In October 2019, Vice President Biden warned that we were susceptible and vulnerable to a pandemic. In January of 2020, he wrote an op-ed that warned and cautioned that Donald Trump should take this seriously. On March 12th, he put out his plan for a COVID-19 response that spoke of widespread testing, making sure everyone had the proper personal protective equipment, that called for operationalizing the Defense Production Act. It was a 10-point plan, frankly. Later on, about a month or so later, Vice President Biden actually had the opportunity to speak with President Trump about this very issue. In public statements, he urged President Trump to take his advice, please adopt his plan, because Vice President Biden was concerned about what's most important for the American people. On the contrary, though, George, I will just note, you know, those Bob Woodward tapes, as you noted earlier, were very explosive. While Vice President Biden was doing all this public urging, and President Trump was speaking privately to, at least we know, one reporter saying that he knew the virus was deadly.
But
he
Symone,
knew that it was airborne.
Symone, that was back in February, and I asked you about January and February. You pointed out in March 12th, the Vice President put out a plan. He did, but he also put out a tweet that day saying a wall will not stop the coronavirus, banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world will not stop it. And I asked you specifically about January and February. I saw the op-eds the Vice President wrote in October. I saw the one he wrote in January, but he didn't explicitly call for travel bans or social distancing or wearing masks.
Look, George, in January and February, Joe Biden was not being briefed by national security experts who warned him how deadly the virus was. In January and February, Joe Biden did not have the knowledge that President Trump did. But I will tell you that if Joe Biden were president in January or February, he would have taken proper precautions. He would have warned the American people. He would have told folks to social distance. He would have modeled good behavior in wearing a mask. But I will note, in January, as you noted, he wrote that op-ed. And so the reality here is Donald Trump had information that could have made a difference, not just 7 months ago, but it could have made a difference for us right now, George. I'm thinking about the folks who are sending their children to schools across this country tomorrow, not knowing if they're safe. I'm also thinking about the parents who are trying to juggle working from home or setting up childcare because their children cannot go to school, and they're setting up schools in their kitchens and basements. I'm concerned about the folks who are going to work in grocery stores and person-to-person services who do not have the proper personal protective equipment because Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has not moved to ensure that it is so. So it is Donald Trump here, George, that has failed the American people.
You heard Jason Miller talk about the president's rally in Nevada last night. There have been some polls showing a pretty close race in Nevada right now, and and former Vice President Biden having relatively weaker numbers with Latinos in Nevada, in Florida. Democrats are concerned about that as well. Here's how the president addressed the Hispanic vote last night in Nevada.
Our incredible border agents, they're incredible people, more than half of whom happen to be Hispanic Americans. Did you know that? I know all of them. Jose, how you doing? Juan, how you doing? every sixth time I'd say, hello, Jim, how are you?
Some of the concerns about the Latino vote have been echoed by Bernie Sanders, and there's a front page story in the Washington Post that says Senator Sanders has expressed concerns about the Biden campaign to your campaign. The senator has identified several specific changes he'd like to see, saying Biden should talk more about health care and about his economic plans and should campaign more with figures popular among young liberals, such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Are you going to take that advice?
Well, George, look, we know that we have work to do, and we have said from the beginning, and Vice President Biden has been very clear about this, as has Senator Harris, that we are really working to earn every single vote in this country, and we want to earn the votes of the Latino and Hispanic community. And so we're doing the work, George. You saw Senator Harris out in Florida just this past week. She also did virtual events in Arizona. Vice President Biden himself will be traveling to Florida next week, and we'll be doing virtual events and interviews because we're committed to doing the work. We have made a historic investment in our Latino and Hispanic paid media program, more than any presidential candidate ever. And we started earlier this cycle. On June 19th, we started a very heavy paid advertising program that's not just television, George, but it's radio, it's digital. It is meeting voters where they are, and we're going to continue to do that work.
Symone Sanders, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.